All right, hopefully I'm live, and hopefully it's working this time. Sorry about that, everybody. You don't do this for a couple weeks, and everything goes to shit, I guess. I don't know. Hopefully, at this point, everything is set up, and everything is working. I'll keep an eye on the computer. The computer, when I look to my left over here, it looks like I'm looking to my right, I guess, to you, is the computer screen, so that's what I'm doing, just checking this. Conditions excellent. Good. Sorry I had to shut it off and start over. But YouTube was yelling at me. There's nothing I can do about that. Alright, so today, earlier today I actually came down here and I spent some time playing with the modular. And I just came up with something that I thought was kind of mellow and kind of nice. It doesn't really go anywhere. You can hear it running in the background, and that's kind of all there is to it. But I thought it had a lot of nice, pleasant sounds in it, and I don't know, that was the point. I started out today playing around with the Flamingo, and just sort of getting to know it a little bit more and sort of understanding it a little bit better on how it works, because you sort of see this stuff theoretically and you have an idea of what it's going to do, and you see the breadboard, you listen to the breadboard stuff, but until you have one in your system and you can sort of interact with it in the same way that you interact with other stuff, you don't really know. So it's in here now. I spent all afternoon messing around with it. I also spent a long time today playing with the snakes sequencers. You can see that I put new panels on them, or new paper panels on them today. I didn't like the white panels. I don't know, I didn't like them. So pink for the Flamingo and green for the snakes. Just for fun. Because it's kind of all just for fun anyway. So let's talk about this patch a little bit. It's 5 sounds, and we have the first sound is, well, I guess we'll go through them here and see what we have. The first sound that we're hearing now is the Flamingo. So this is patched out of there into the filter, into the crow filter. Because last night I don't think I ever patched it through a filter. And I patched it through a wave folder because that's the environment that it's going to live in the voltage lab. But I wanted to hear it through a filter and see what it sounded like. And I think it sounds really, really nice. Play around with the sound a little bit here. It is being modulated in a couple spots. Just smooth it out there a bit. So that's the first sound. The second sound is kick drum. I like this kick. I use it quite a bit. This one I did a little bit different. Not that much different, to be honest. Yotis, hello. It's good. I'm glad you received the package. Thanks for stopping in and saying hello. Can I show you? Samuel wants to see the voltage lab too. No, can't show you that. If I show you, it's I'll kind of ruin the surprise. And there's an instrument coming out before the voltage lab too. So I can't show it to you. It's worth the wait. I promise. But anyway, let's talk about the patch. So we're talking now about the kick drum. The kick drum is the same kick drum I use all the time. I modified it slightly by using an oscillator input. So I took the oscillator from the double helix up here. I went out of the wave folder, the low pass gate, and this is wide open. I'm just taking a raw waveform out and going into the input of the kick here. So if I take that out, you can hear it This is the standard kick. And if I add, just adds a little bit of depth to it, a little bit of modulation. Maybe smooths it out a touch. That's kind of nice. Or maybe it doesn't do anything at all. I don't know. If we roll off the resonance, so we're just hearing what's coming out of the oscillator. This is what's coming out of this oscillator here. Almost like a hand drum. But as we bring up the resonance, it just consumes it. Maybe we won't bring it up quite as high. Just leave it about there. All right. So the third sound kind of dig this sound. The sound is, it's all over the place here. This is noise from double helix into the high pass of the Crow filter. And that is patched through the dynamics controller here, which is being triggered by the second channel of the sequencer, and I'll get to that in a bit. We have a nice little weird pattern with that, which is kind of cool. And then the output goes through the phase shifter. Last night someone mentioned the phase shifter, and I realized, you know, I should use it if I have it in my case. It's not always in the case because it's large, but when I stick it in here, I should absolutely use it. So it's running, and that's going through the local florist and then into a delay. No? How do I have it? No, I'm sorry. There's no delay. Just a local florist into the mixer. There's more florist effect. And now we have a couple more sounds here. This is the SV1. And it's got a strange pattern because I have, it's the bottom sequence here, but I am triggering it with one of the snakes. So the stages on here don't necessarily match up with the active stages and what it's getting triggered. So we get these sort of half pitch changes where halfway through a note, the pitch changes without it re-triggering. I kind of like that effect. It gives you a very strange vibe to it. You can hear it. I like that. And that's not something that I could normally achieve with this sequencer on its own, because if the step is off, it doesn't change the pitch. So using a separate gate sequencer is a way to activate that. So that's, and then the last sound here is the voltage lab going through the analog delay unit. And then out. This is also being triggered by one of the snake sequencers. So today was really, this afternoon was really me just, again, getting to know the Flamingo, but also starting to use the snakes in the context of a patch and understanding what works, what doesn't work, maybe what's missing, or even what's maybe a little bit unnecessary. So let's add these things all back in together slowly here and see what we have. I also added a little bit of reverb to the kick, which is, again, something that I don't normally do. I certainly don't do it on purpose. Sometimes I'll end up with some reverb on it if the only channel I have left is the group channel for the kick. But this one, it's on its own channel, but I still gave it a little reverb anyway, just because I think it's less about the sort of punchiness of it and more about the atmosphere that it's creating. And that's kind of nice. So we could talk about the, let's see what we have here. We could talk about the sequencing a little bit. I don't think I talked about it. For the Flamingo, pitch is being sequenced with the large sequencer, just the top channel here. And trigger, the gate is being triggered by a couple different things. It's being triggered by the gate channel here, and it's also being not triggered but opened up by the function generator, because I wanted it to sometimes be rhythmic and sometimes kind of be a bit of a drone. And you can kind of hear that a little bit. Where the rhythmic pattern of it sometimes gets washed out and it just sort of opens up a little bit. And that's tied directly to the function generator here, which is cycling and acting as an LFO. And the reason I use this and not another LFO is this is positive only, and because it was going into the dynamics controller, which only responds to positive only, I didn't want it dipping into the negative voltage. Pretty simple. So we can talk about the what's driving the voltage lab now, the gate-wise, is snakes. And you can hear the sub beats that I've programmed in using the pattern generator. This is something that you couldn't do in the percussion sequencer, but I absolutely wanted it in here. And the way it works is super easy. The snakes is basically a 16-step dual sequencer or a 132-step single sequencer. I haven't actually written the 32-step side of it yet, so it's just two dual 16 steps right now. But the way it works is you have the top 16 buttons are the sequence, and then you have an edit and an AB, and the AB just switches between the A and B sequencer, and edit, if you hold it down, lets you access the 16 sub-features of this. So if I hold edit and hit subnotes down, you can see some of the LEDs are now blinking, and I can just turn them on. There's several different levels of it, so just sort of go through and turn them on or off. I can change the sort of depth of them. And that's as easy as that. And you can clear them all with one button press and all that. So it's nice, and it gives it a little bit more movement. We can also add chants to it. And we can add this per note. So you can set the probability per step. So sometimes it'll trigger, sometimes it won't. Again, you can clear it all with one thing, but it's nice because you can create these sort of changing patterns. Like I said, this patch doesn't really go anywhere. I didn't make anything written into it where it'll sort of evolve or change at all. But as a single patch, I think it's really pleasant. It doesn't have any generative aspects to it. There's no random in it. So I'm not using the gibbons. I know there's a patch cable going between them. That's just a clock. I don't know. That's from an earlier patch that's left in there. So I'm not using any random generation. So it literally is just using LFOs to sort of fade stuff and blend stuff together. It's a very clean, very basic patch. And I think this is something that it's just a lot of really simple things added up to create something interesting. Or hopefully, something interesting. Now we're just opening up the noise here. Just letting it run through the phase shifter. Basically, Brian, the Flamingo is sort of a concept module. It's an oscillator, but it's by no means a general purpose oscillator. It's not designed to be a general purpose oscillator. It's designed to allow me to test some interesting wave shaping that Michael and I are working on. So it has the same oscillator core that we're using in the voltage lab, and the same oscillator core that we're going to use in the voltage lab too, by the way. And we've tacked onto it, I called the oscillator the harmonic interpolation Flamingo, but the sort of science behind it is something called center clipping, which what that allows us to do is shape, most wave shapers shape from the top of the oscillator and the bottom of the oscillator. And the idea is that you shape the wave by getting in there from the top and the bottom. Center clipping allows us to shape the waveform from the middle out. So we start with the wave shaping in the middle at the 0 point crossing, and we shape it outwards. It gives us some really, really interesting effects. And the patch really isn't set up right now to dive into how exactly that works or some of the sounds you can get out of it. But what happens is it ends up giving you what I think is a very natural sound. And that's, if you've listened to me ramble on about this in the past, you understand that the idea of taking organic sounds and creating something very natural that sounds like it's of the world we live in is something that I'm really interested in. It's something that I push for all of our new designs to be focused on. I think the Voltage Lab did that really well, and we've taken it a much larger step forward. So the center clipping circuitry is just another move in that direction. It's something really, really interesting. Michael's been working on it for a long time, and this is sort of the first physical, certainly Eurorack version of that. And so I wanted to build it in a standalone module so we could get in there and get behind the scenes and tweak it and change the ranges of everything and make sure it sounds exactly how we want it to sound. This is going to be, the Voltage Lab 2 has 2 brand new oscillators in it. This is one of them. The other oscillators, I'm sure I'll talk about it down the road, is something very different, but they're going to complement each other really well. And this is the one I'm playing with right now, and I think it sounds really, really amazing. Unfortunately, when you do something that's kind of new and there's no precedent set for how to describe it or how to talk about it, you kind of have to invent words or invent ways to describe it. So you'll see the controls on here. Obviously, we have coarse and fine tune. It's an oscillator. Seed. We're using seed to describe the active waveform, and the reason we call it seed and just not waveform is the end result has a very abstract relationship. The output waveform has a very abstract relationship with the oscillator waveform, the geometric shape that we start with. So this oscillator has a saw or a sine wave. Those are the only 2 waveforms on it. And seed just switches between the 2 of them. We have 2 of the sliders here, crest and trough. And what that does is that allows you to shape the top of the waveform independently of the bottom of the waveform. So crest shapes the top of the waveform and trough shapes the bottom of the waveform. And you have voltage control over the crest. And the reason you have voltage control over the crest and not both is that theoretically, if you would sweep it, they should sound the same. So what you're using trough to set up the shaping of the crest, which is going to give you the different palette of sounds. Then we have drift, density, and focus are a few of the other controls. Again, and I'll get into this more and more as we go along, but for now, I think that gives you a rough idea of what it does. The idea that it's center clipping is the interesting bit, if you ask me. How we achieve that and what we sort of built around it, I think is less important at this point. It's really just, how does it sound? This oscillator doesn't have any guardrails on it yet. As we design our modules, we always start with, what if it did everything? Or what if the sound, this slider went too far? So we always start sort of there, and then we rein it in. So Michael and I will get together over the next week or so, and we'll rein it in. We'll make sure that crest does what it's supposed to do, and it only goes as far as it needs to go, and the same with all the controls. So we'll sort of pull it together, but right now it's wide open, so there's a lot of spots where it doesn't make any sound, or a lot of spots where it does something that maybe is a little bit awkward. And the fun thing about getting a prototype like this is finding those spots and really digging in. Correcting it and adjusting things is not really it's not a hard thing to do, because we've built in sort of spots in the circuit to adjust. So playing around with it, though, has been an absolute joy, because I think it sounds really good. And it has a unique sound, something that we don't have in our palette yet. So that was really exciting for me. things about center clipping is as you go through and adjust it, there's a lot of different settings you can get to, but one in particular allows you to cancel out the fundamental, which is really interesting sonically. So you get all these extra harmonics, but the fundamental just disappears, which is really, really cool. That may be a little bit nerdy, but I suspect if you're sitting watching me patch synthesizers, that's the kind of information you're here to, to get. So nice. So you can hear it right there if I turn down the delay. How it's canceling itself out as it runs through its cycles with the modulation coming in. That's absolutely fascinating to me. I dig it. I dig it. The local florist is being used with the noise patch. So this is the local florist. It has a noise into the phase shifter and a filter into the florist. So not really used in more of a chorusy way than an actual florist effect. Though why you would run a chorus after a phase shifter, I don't know, but I did. And it's kind of fun. I've been experimenting with, I have a bunch of guitar pedals, as I'm sure a lot of you do too, and I've been experimenting with using them in different orders because I get in a rut of, well, this needs to go before this and this needs to go before this because that's the way you do it. And it's not. It doesn't matter. So I've been experimenting with doing things that to me seem a little odd and not the way I would normally do it. So if this was me, I would have put the florist before the phase shifter because I would put the delay first, but I flipped it around and I think the results are just good. Does Crow have CV modulation capability? Yes, it has a CV input, which I'm modulating. Actually, both of these Crows that are being used right now have CV going into them. It's filter frequency CV. just one local source is being used. Is the sequencer going into the production? This sequencer will go into production. I'm not sure when. I'm obviously still working on the code. On Friday, I had to run to the shop after work because I was at home typing the code. I realized that there was an error on the schematic, and I had to go in and mod the PCB real fast. So they are very much a fresh work in progress. Along with the Flamingo. The Flamingo is about as fresh as it can get. While we were waiting for the first batch of zoo modules to come back, I jumped the gun a little bit and did the second batch. So the second batch has 4 modules if we decide to do them all. And I'm sure over the next couple weeks you'll see them all in my case. First of all, Data Broth, that's a great name. And second of all, I can't agree more with what you're saying about the idea of a protocol going against the idea of sound design. However, in my mind, I just get in a rut, and I know the sounds, and because I'm processing something that theoretically is interesting to me, I already know which order to put the pedals in to get the sound that I want out of my head. So it's rare that I would sit down and just experiment saying, no, let's try it this way because I'd never tried it that way. And it's been nice because I'm opening up my sound palette to stuff maybe that I wouldn't have thought about, which is cool. How many lines of code go into a module on average? Is there a lot of DSP required? No, there's not a lot of DSP required. These guys all run on Arduinos, so it only goes so fast. Most of the modules that have chips in them, just using the chip to manage digital switching. So on the Voltage Lab, for instance, it'll manage the MIDI, but for the most part, all it does is make these buttons work. So when I press this button, the digital switch controls an analog switch to route the analog signals where they need to go. In a module like this, there's no analog in it at all. It's all digital. In fact, Snakes it's not even wired to the -12 rail. It's all positive. So for something like this, it'll probably end up being about 5,000 lines of code. Probably, give or take. I have a few features left. I have the link the 2 sequences together to create one 32-step sequence left to right, and also the load and save features don't work yet. I've written a lot of that code, I just haven't enabled it. I don't do that on I don't enable the load and save on most of my projects until the very end, because what I find is if I do that too early, I end up making changes. I end up with a lot of weird, corrupt data that I then have to go scrub. So it's just easier to make sure that that's the actual last thing that I do is write the load and save functions. Nice. Data, good luck on your Arduino project. I've started moving away from the Arduino. I'm using it on these. I'm using it on the Snakes. It's on the Gibbon. But for some of our larger scale products now, we have moved to ARM chips. Voltage Lab 2 will have an ARM chip. The sequencer that goes with the Voltage Lab 2 has an ARM chip. All of our major projects at this point, we've moved to the ARM Cortex chips. So they're just faster and you can do more with them. But for stuff like this, it makes no difference. If for all you're doing is switching, doesn't matter at all. Oh, thank you. I wish this patch did more, but this is kind of what it does. Like guess that's okay. Not every patch has to be a big thing, I guess. Hopefully, Bill, either later in 2021 or early 2022, we will be hiring a DSP developer. Because that's not something. Up to this point, I've written all the code in Pittsburgh stuff. Before I started Pittsburgh Modular, I was a software developer, and I did really boring, so like database stuff for a large company. It was super boring. But it was just all math all day, and I just got so burned out that I have no interest in doing any math at all. So the code that I write for like sequencers and stuff, it's all logic. It's all gates, signal flow. I have no interest in doing digital oscillators or anything like that personally. I don't want to do the DSP. I don't want to do the math. Maybe I'm too old for math. I don't know. But for some projects that we have in the pipeline, there is a need for DSP, and in the next year, I'll be hiring hopefully a very smart DSP programmer. On the Flamingo is just creating this. I don't know if you guys can hear this, but in my headphones, it's like pulsating my brain. Earlier today, I said to Danielle, I think I broke my brain. I've been listening to weird sounds all day. I dig this thing so much. It's so cool because it's really something that no one else has done this before. There was John Buchla had written about it years and years ago, but he never implemented it because there's some issues with it. There's some problems that you run into. Our engineer Michael Johnson has spent a lot of time solving those issues, and I think just did an absolutely musical solutions to all of them. Really, really interesting. Well, cool. This is super fun. It's nice to do this tonight where everything was working. Before I had some issues with the first stream, but we fixed that. It's nice. The cameras are set up. The audio actually works today, where yesterday we had some problems with that, but which is why I didn't archive the live stream. This one I'll leave up. And now that we're set up again, hopefully I do these more often. I did get a couple new toys in the past couple weeks that I've been enjoying. So I can show those off on the live stream here. I got a Erica Synthrex, and man, the thing is inspiring. It's really great. Really, really great. I haven't hooked it up to a keyboard yet or anything. I've just sort of done weird drones and bird sounds on it, but oh, I'm in love. This is what I did all afternoon. I just sat here zoning out to this. And it was a good day. Ooh, a Nixon and Medusa, nice. Yeah, the Synthrex is bonkers. I'm such a fan. I played with it at a Perfect Circuit event after NAMM last year, and I absolutely dug it. So I spent the year saving my ducats, and I ordered one. I'm very happy. So I don't buy synthesizers very often. You might not believe that, but I usually make something if I'm sort of anxious for a synth bit, I'll make it. But that instrument in particular sort of scratches my weird itch. To me, it's in the category of the instrument on its own is interesting enough to fit into the area of music that I like to make. So it's, and Eric, since people, they're such nice crew, and oh, I'm a fan. I haven't played with a whole bunch of Dreadbox stuff. And all the demos I've heard and all the videos I've seen, though, it sounds really good. Yeah, the Rossum stuff's great, too. messing with the kick drum now, so I'm utilizing the oscillator that I had patched into a little bit. I'm modulating it so it just mixes it up a little bit. Bill, that's a wise comment. I am super interested to see what parts of the VL2 are the most popular. It's not going to change the design. The design was finalized a while ago, but out of curiosity, example, you can hear it right now in the Flamingo. If I raise the drift, the fundamental just disappears. We're just left with the harmonics, and they're sort of swimming around, but that's all there is. And if I bring it back down, the fundamental comes back in. Yeah. That's the stuff. Oscillators that I had covered in tape a while back. They are sitting on a shelf right over there. I took the tape off because I had to do some demo videos with them. And I've been too lazy to put the tape back on, so they're not in the system. They should be out relatively soon, and then you'll know what they were. Completely unrelated to this. Flamingo does not want to make drum and bass. Not tonight, anyway. we have them in the shop. We just have to, Perry has to tell me when he has time to box them up and ship them out. So once, and it should be in the next week or two. So once that happens, I'll let everybody know and they'll be available. Because of COVID, we're trying to only have one person at the shop at a time. So it makes doing things hard. Or not hard, but slow. And we have a small crew. There's only 5 of us now. So we're shrinking. Simon, I don't think there's a second run of the local florist in my future. It will be part of the Voltage Lab 2, though, if that's any consolation. This is pretty deep sonically. It feels very strange talking over it, but I guess that's what we're doing. Everybody, that's the patch for tonight. If this patch is over, let the Flamingo drone for another second or two. So that's it. Thanks for hanging out with me. I gotta go to bed because I'm trying to not stay up anymore super late, believe it or not. So hopefully I'll be in bed by 12:30 and I can get a decent night's sleep and get to work tomorrow. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. It's been a blast to do this. Again, I know I did it last night, but tonight I feel like things worked, which is cool. I appreciate the questions in the chat. That makes it a lot more fun for me to get to interact with you guys. So I'll be back hopefully sooner than later because I really enjoy doing this. And in the meantime, if you guys have any questions for me, just shoot me an email or leave them in the comments. And thank you very much, guys. I will see you later.